Man, I'm so beat.
It's so Dullsville up in this pad.
Yeah.
Dullsville, you say? What are you deadheads talking about? I got Coca-Cola.
What is that?
Whoa. What's happening?
Coke is happening.
Whoa. You mean like coke? Like cocaine?
Shut up, you hood. Coke.
Coke?
Yeah. It's gotta send you far out.
Woo!
Yeah, there we go.
Some Coke side effects are cancer, diabetes, and a heart attack, but take them at your own risk. Welcome to the Slang of the 1950s, and we're going to be talking about pop culture. Pop culture was a new movement occurring in the post-war era. Pop culture consists of many things during the 1950s. It consists of television, radios, films, the beat movement, and rock and roll. Some television shows are I Love Lucy and 21. Most shows are comedy shows and not filled with propaganda. Radio started to evolve into local programming. Radios also played African American music to popularize African American culture. Film was introduced with new stereophonic sounds. The beat movement was artists, poets, and writers. Some of the best were Allen Ginsberg and Jack Kerouac. Finally, we have the introduction of a new type of music called rock and roll. Rock and roll was a new music for the young teenagers. That pretty much sums up pop culture. Let's talk about the emergence of teenagers.
The emergence of a teenager. Seems like teens have been spending a lot of money recently, especially on food, clothes, and rock and roll discs. The 1957 Corvette was the rage, and it seems as well they are becoming more independent. Products such as creams, soft drinks, and comics were aimed at teens just to spend money. And movies were especially made for teens. Males were expected to join the military or go out and find a job to provide for their family or future family. Females were taught how to take care of the household and prepare themselves to be a superb wife and take care of their children.
Breaking news. There is a spaced out kid in the hood. Here's some exclusive footage.
What are you doing?
Just drinking my Coke.
Coke? Huh. Let me smell that. NJPD. This is not Coke. Sorry, sir, but you're under arrest.
For what?
You got him. Question Where do you think you're going? Yeah.
Thank God they took that spaced out kid, or else I don't think I'd be safe in this neighborhood.
Mass media was a means of communication that could reach large audiences. First widely available in 1948, only 9% of American homes by 1950 owned a television. In the 1960s, televisions in American homes skyrocketed to 90%. That's probably 45 million people. Clearly, TV was the entertainment and the information marvel of the post-war years. But even so, that TV took over the media, radios, and movies survived. But instead of competing with television's mass market for drama and variety shows, radio stations turned to local programming of local news, weather, music, and community issues. This way, television won't kill radio off by a landslide. Although the age of television was great, many critics believe that its effects on children and its stereotypical depictions on women and minorities. Women, in fact, appear in stereotypical roles such as housewives and ideal mothers, while minorities such as Africans and Latinos rarely appeared in television programs at all. Although African Americans gained their fame through music.
Thank you, Camilo. Now let's go on to rock and roll with Brian.
Rock and roll was a genre that defined the 50s youth. A genre derived from a mix of country, blues, and gospel. Rock and roll was sung by artists such as Buddy Holly and Elvis Presley. The fast-paced feels of the music allowed teenagers to enjoy the music in a good time for USA. The lyrics sang about mainstream topics such as love, cars, and the problems of being young. Rock and roll was looked down upon by older adults, who saw it as a sign of rebellion against them. This caused a shift between the older and newer generation, as the ideas were becoming distant from an old traditionalist ideals. The lyrics and dances of rock and roll were seen as a danger to the U.S. traditions and a threat to Christian religion in the South. Now we're going to be interviewing a rock and roller, a young boy named Paul. So here we're interviewing Paul, a rock and roller.
Cowabunga.
Now, Paul, what do you think about rock and roll?
I think rock and roll is great. It gives all of us teens a really great feel to us, since we're all happy now. Even though some of the older people think we're chintzy greasers, but that's not true. We're all just happy teens having fun.
Okay. So, who is your favorite artist so far?
My favorite artist as of now has to be Elvis Presley. He is a really great singer and a great dancer, which makes him very innovative from other artists.
Now, what do you think about these old people that have been affecting you?
Hardy har har. These old people don't know anything about rock and roll. They're too old to understand what we think. You know, they've been through war and stuff, but we haven't. We're really happy. So they really don't understand us at all.
Now, what do you think 50 years from now rock and roll will be like?
I believe that in 50 years, rock and roll will still be the same today, a bit happy. A rebellion away from society so that we can all just have fun and go away from what other people think. Be ourselves, basically.
Okay. Thank you, Paul. Thank you for being here to interview.
You're very welcome, sir.
Thank you for that great interview, Brian. Now let's move on to the beat movement with Carlos.
But first, let me put on my reading glasses. The beat movement. This movement was expressed as social and literally non-conformity of artists, poets, and writers. This centered in San Francisco, Los Angeles, and New York's Greenwich Village. Followers were called Beats or Beatniks, which was a nickname they didn't like. They tend to shun regular work and sought drugs, sexual relationships, and Zen Buddhism, as well as to rock. Many poets and writers believed that imposing as little structure as possible on their artistic work. Really popular people around this time were Allen Ginsberg and Jack Kerouac. Their novels were known as nomadic across the U.S. for authentic experiences.
Thank you, Carlos. Now let's move on to types of programming with Simon.
The 50s saw the rise of television. During this period, TV shows and programs came on the rise. This period was known as the golden age for television. In the early 50s, the TV was a small black box with a round screen. Programs would be displayed in black and white and would run about 2 hours per week. However, after World War II, the invention of the microwave relay made it possible for television waves to travel long distances. This innovation made the television market boom, and just like that, the programs were being shown everywhere. Popular programs/shows in the 90s included The Today Show, What's on My Mind, The Twilight Zone, Looney Tunes, and Tom and Jerry. The 50s also saw the rise of popular celebrities. These famous celebrities are Marilyn Monroe, Arthur Miller, Louis Armstrong, Elvis Presley, Martin Luther King Jr., and more.
Thank you for watching this week's broadcast. Stay tuned for next week.